as president, but it was the right thing, not just for my family, for me. No one should ever seek the presidency unless they're able to devote their whole heart and soul and passion into just doing that. And blow with my soul, I just wasn't ready to be able to do that. Now, my one regret is my blow's not here. I don't have any other regrets.
That's extremely sad.
Yes. So every time Joe Biden talks about his son passing away, I nearly tear up. And when he calls him my beau, I'm like, oh man, hold it back, right? And so, if you've never seen it, Joe Biden had this amazing speech he gave to veterans. This is before Beau Biden passed away. He talked about his loss because you don't know, he originally lost one of his kids and his wife in a tragic accident decades ago, right, when he first became a senator. So he'd already felt that terrible tragedy. Then he loses his adult son to cancer. That's why they're doing the cancer moonshot, which, I mean, we all, no matter what you are politically, hope that it works, obviously. We all get cancer, whether you're Republican or Democrat, right? And so it's wonderful that he's doing that. Now let's talk about the political stuff that he said there. And I've got some very clear conclusions on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do at least two gavels here. First gavel. Would Joe Biden have won the presidency? No. Okay.
If everybody else who was running.
Yes.
No.
Now, people always talk about Joe Biden, maybe. There's no maybe, okay? So, first, Joe is not an electrifying campaigner, and
he's fun.
Yeah, but he makes a ton of gaffes, and it's deeply problematic, right? I've seen it 1,000 times.
He's got a bit of that Trump thing, though, where his gaffes don't stick to him the same way they do to other politicians.
Yeah, but neither do the voters. Okay, so here's
bounce off.
Yeah, here's my pretty overwhelming evidence that I don't know why nobody talked about it when they were like, is Biden going to run? I don't know if you know this, Biden already ran against Hillary Clinton in 2008. They both lost to Obama, but it's not like Biden just lost to Obama. No, Hillary Clinton cleaned his clock.
Technically, I think that you have to expect that any relatively young vice president is going to pursue the presidency. I think that's what fueled a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing that he was considered not just a less attractive candidate than Hillary Clinton to a lot of the establishment types, but less high profile, basically, despite the fact that he was the vice president.
Yeah,
he could become president any given day, but it didn't really matter. And look, I have to say that when people were talking about him early on, Joe Biden seems like a nice guy. I can tell you almost nothing about him that's distinct from other Democrats, and not really any fault to it. He doesn't project that this is the thing that drives me. And now he's got the cancer thing. Obviously, makes total sense, all the sense in the world. But it's not like I can tell you what he's been fighting for his whole career and list his policy differences with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders.
So I know that a tiny bit better because I've been following him for decades that I've been in covering politics. And he tends to be a tiny bit more progressive than your average Democrat, partly because he grew up in a time, politically, when Democrats were more progressive. So they cared more about all the different issues. Healthcare, he's actually great on women's rights issues. Has been a good champion of that for a long, long time. But, as with the rest of the Democratic Party, he has been corrupted a little bit to a lot by the corporate influence of all the donors. So I would have put him somewhere between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders.
Or Mark O'Malley, maybe.
Right, but definitely closer to Hillary Clinton than to Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. So then if you're outflanked on both sides, Bernie's way to the left of you and Hillary's more establishment than you really don't have anywhere to go. Yeah. So given his prior experience as a lackluster candidate, and given that he was outflanked on both sides, he wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. Okay, so you don't need to shed a tear for Joe on that. I literally watched that speech he gave to the veterans. I shed many tears.
Yeah, and look, he can do that. He's not an electrifying campaigner, I agree. I remember some of the debates and all that. But even right in the clip that we just showed you, when he was talking about why he thinks that nobody should be in it unless they have their whole heart, that they can put into it and all that, like there's more. I'm not saying that he's not to some extent hiding political calculations, which also went into him not running, which I'm sure that was a small part of it. But it was more emotional, more raw, and in some ways more honest than everything Donald Trump has ever said put together into one ball. And it takes him 2 seconds to achieve something Donald Trump will never achieve in his life. And the speech that you're referring to there is a more extended version of that. And so that's an advantage that he has over some politicians, at least.
Well, so he's super real in that sense, and he's always been like the average guy, and he went back and forth between Delaware and Washington because on the Amtrak, right? That he commuted all the time.
Now he uses one of those hoverboards, so they're not safe. Don't use them.
So, and he's not rich. He's one of the few politicians in Washington who's not rich. He started in politics when he was really young and never went out and became a lobbyist.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really, real guy feel to Joe Biden, and a lot of it is true. Now, again, having said all that, he's been part of this democratic system and establishment for a long time. So there's no savior thing to Uncle Joe. And Uncle Joe is like the guy who comes over for Thanksgiving. He says one or two inappropriate things, but that's because he's, a little older than everybody. And you say, Uncle Joe, you don't say colored anymore, or whatever it is, right? And
he didn't say colored.
He didn't say that.
He didn't say it.
Although he did talk about the Indians at 7-Eleven and stuff, right? But he's a lovable guy. You know Uncle Joe means well, right? When Uncle Don comes over, you're like, hide your teenage daughters because he's going to hug them too hard.
To hide his teenage daughters.
You see what I'm saying? They're both inappropriate uncles in totally different ways. One means really well. The other one's a little possibly monstrous.
Yeah.
So referring to Donald Trump, of course. But I do have one more gavel for you guys.
You know what it is.
Okay. So, is he guilty for saying I would have been the best president? Because now that's, wait a minute, now you're getting Hillary Clinton's grill. What's the point for that? Right now, she's in the middle of running. Don't do that.
Right now.
No, not guilty. Of course everybody thinks they would have been the best president. I think I'd be the best president. Right? So a guy who's the vice president.
But you're a little bit below Biden.
Right. And has been in politics his whole life. He's allowed to think that he would have been the best president.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know that he's come out and actually endorsed Hillary Clinton, but he seems to have accepted that that's the way the party's going. As you say, he's an establishment guy for a very long time. She's cozied up to their administration, not necessarily him specifically, but the administration for quite a while now, always ready to throw Barack Obama under that Wall Street donations bus. But at the same time, him saying that now, what that made me think of is what you had been talking about, the scuttlebutt in D.C., that if she were to be indicted, and if she were to go down, then all of a sudden, maybe not Bernie, maybe Biden. So maybe he's Biden's son.
Yeah, and so it is a weird thing.
Which he must have heard of, by the way.
Of course. It is a weird thing for him to say at this juncture.
Mm-hmm.
So while I declare him not guilty for thinking that, he's not unsavvy about politics, and so strange timing, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then people keep saying like, "Hey, Cenk, this whole talk of Hillary Clinton getting indicted is ridiculous because if she was going to get indicted, they would put Biden out there." Well, you just saw Biden out there telling you he'd be the best president. So when Paul Ryan did his machinations when it looked like there was going to be a contested convention, he kept saying, "Oh no, I didn't have. I would never, right?" So now you have Biden going, "Well, I would, and that'd be awesome." So interesting.
That's an interesting development. Look, I like Biden. I've always liked Biden. I feel bad for him, especially the family trauma. I've lost people in my family. But if Hillary goes down and he jumps in front of Bernie, the burners send their regards.
Yeah.
Sorry, got to take you down, Uncle Biden.
Yeah, no, okay, now let's keep it real. I mean, if they tried something like that at the convention, if you thought the Republican convention was going to be contested, believe me, the Democratic convention would be heavily contested. And a lot of people would be sending their regards. And there's no way. Like, they would split the party right down the middle if they did that, because that would be such an obnoxious, unacceptable move that, that a lot of people who would have voted for whoever the Democratic nominee was would be like, hell no, under no circumstance.
Definitely. Weird prediction. If there is actual violence at the Democratic convention around Joe Biden, he seems like the sort of guy to roll up his sleeves and then old school.
Yeah.
He strikes me as that type. Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, what are you doing, old man? And he's like, boom. You're like, oh, stick to the
Yeah. And you realize, oh shit, he can actually punch.
Joe Biden just broke my nose.
Wrong intro. Okay. So the next one. Fox News' Sean Hannity had Geraldo on to break down Bernie Sanders' victory speech last night after winning in West Virginia. And as is apparently becoming more and more common on cable news, they forgot that their mics were on while the video was rolling. Let's watch.
All right, hold those polls for 1 second. We're just going to dip in real quick and watch the socialist Bernie Sanders just step up to the microphone. There he is. Two each according to his need, from each according to his ability. Spread the wealth. Tax people at 98%. That's pretty much the message of Bernie Sanders.
Annoying. This guy is so annoying.
Your mic is hot. What are you saying?
He's so annoying. And people think that his support doesn't go to Donald Trump or smoking dope.
Okay. So I don't know why people think this is controversial. Wouldn't he just say that on air anyway?
Yeah, I actually don't. I don't think he necessarily even thought his mic was on. Well, because the thing is, like, Sean Hannity was speaking. Sean Hannity presumably knew that the mic was live, unless he just realized it. All that stuff that Sean Hannity was saying, which was, by the way, far more inflammatory and ridiculous and demonstrably untrue than what Geraldo was saying. He said that. Like, you can debate whether Bernie Sanders is annoying. Okay, you can't debate whether he would tax people at 98%. It's simply untrue.
Yeah. So, what weird rules they have in cable news? Like, you're allowed to lie about the guy to no end. He gives, like, the communist credo there. For a socialist, those are not the same things, right?
A social democrat.
Right. And so, the whole point of Fox News is to trick you and to lie to you and to get you to believe in right-wing propaganda. But wait, Geraldo, don't say annoying. Your mic is hot.
That's personal.
Like, so what?
Yeah.
Right. And of course we don't agree with him, and there's a lot we don't agree with on Geraldo, but I don't care that he thinks that Bernie's annoying. I think he's annoying.
I don't care at all.
So what?
We got something for you in a second. You're probably going to care a little bit more. But as much as I didn't like what Sean Hannity said there, I do want to give them credit, because while saying that, while Bernie Sanders' speech was playing, they did something no other mainstream media outlet would do, which is play parts of his speech.
Yes.
Which, for some reason, it doesn't matter if Bernie wins or loses. They're showing that empty podium of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I think last night they actually showed a Ted Cruz empty podium.
When we do live coverage on TYTnetwork.com/live, which we do at every election night, every debate, and we'll go to the Bernie Sanders speeches. We'll go to as many of the speeches as we can, because we want to have you guys hear them out. And then we'll always be amused at CNN. We have monitors in the studio. They're like, here's Bernie says, never mind, empty Trump podium. Let's stay on that for 20 minutes.
Podium watch.
Right. I mean, and I was on another channel today, and there was a conservative on, and we were debating kind of, and like they're like, oh, Trump, they cover him because he gets such good ratings. But wait a minute, online we know, and it's not just us. Others have written articles about how Bernie Sanders does even better than Trump. Okay. Now I don't know that that's exactly the same for TV. But obviously, there's a ton of people super interested in Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Yet he never gets the coverage anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the ratings.
Yeah. And plus, like, TV should learn that with the audience they have, and we talk about the demographics of, like, the mainstream cable news audience, like, you want to bring on a young face. Bernie Sanders far younger than their average viewer. Like, put the young ones out, and that'll excite the old folks watching at home.
There's
anyway,
some truth.
That's a roundabout way to say that their audience is very old. Very old. But while we didn't necessarily think that Geraldo was wrong to say that he thinks Bernie Sanders is annoying, that's them being slightly more like a YouTube channel, which is actually a good thing from our point of view, because they're usually so fake. Sean Hannity trying to get Geraldo to be fake there. What Geraldo went on to say a little bit later on, not about Bernie Sanders, but about the African-American vote, is possibly a little bit more offensive.
Mitt Romney got 27% of the Hispanic vote and lost. He got trounced. If Donald Trump doesn't do 40% of the Hispanic vote, he likely will lose big time also.
Disagree.
And his hope, I think, is black men. If Donald Trump can go to black men and say, Trump is keeping out your competition for jobs with the immigration stuff, and also Trump is rich. If he can get the hip-hop vote. he can get that number from 10% to 15, 18% in a state like Ohio, makes a difference.
Hip hop vote.
How did they say that with a straight face? No wonder their audience is that old.
He's always talking about the pants and stuff like that. Like, he has a very conservative view of Black America from 1990, and he has not changed one bit since then.
He's unbelievable. So, Bill O'Reilly's audience, as an example, is on their median age is 72 years old, right? So, I met a Fox News viewer the other day. He's 37. In order to balance him out, there is a 107-year-old watching Bill O'Reilly, okay? Yeah. So, and Fox News overall is 68. The reason I'm saying it in this context is because I believe Geraldo's over 70. Like, he looks younger. He's a really, he looks really fit, and he's in good shape. Remember, he got in trouble for taking that selfie with his shirt off and stuff like that.
Nice ass.
Okay, God bless your heart. There we're on your side, right? But don't let that appearance trick you. He's just as old as Fox's audience. Yeah. So he's like, what's these hip-hop kids doing on my lawn? I think maybe Donald Trump should get the hip-hoppers.
You just appear to rally with Run DMC, and I think that you can win this thing.
Yeah. And if he can get Grandmaster Flash on his side, he's got this election all wrapped up.
Yeah.
And, if there's one way to appeal to African-American voters, it is to patronize them by calling them hip-hoppers. Okay.
Yeah.
JR, are you more likely to vote for Donald Trump, you hip-hopper?
I was wondering. Actually, I've been so against him until he decided to put a hoodie on, wear some chucks and shit. But I was annoyed by this all day. I saw it early this morning. And I was trying to decipher what the fuck is a hip-hop vote, right? Because he didn't, I feel like he changed it from, there's a difference between the hip-hop vote and the black vote. Because he brought up, brings up his money. And by the way, black folks are not competing, maybe at least in Southern California, not competing with immigrants from say, South America, Central America, Mexico. They're not competing with them for the jobs. That was the first part of this thing I'm always talking about. And then number two, the hip-hop vote. Talk about your money. So you think young black guys are going to go out and vote, be like, yeah, Donald Trump's going to get me because people still say bling bling. That was 1996. That shit was out. So nobody says that anymore. No one goes out. It's not going to prompt a vote from anyone. I think that's what he meant. Like, I've got money. You can have money too and buy your Bentleys and get your bitches. That's what he thinks. He really thinks that's a valid full thought process that voters have. That's how much. That's the degree of mental capacity I think a certain block of voters have.
So let me address the first point that JR made, because I think some people might be thinking, no, I mean, look, you're with the undocumented immigrants, there's their competition for jobs and stuff. No. Geraldo, again, like the Fox News guys, thinks from old school, like, well, it's either going to be the black guy that mows my lawn or the Mexican illegal alien, right? And so, or that are just going to do the farming. Who's on the farm? The black people or the Mexicans, right? And so that's why he says something like they're in competition for the jobs. Now, you can make a general point that undocumented immigrants are cluttering the job market, and that's a legitimate discussion to have, right? But to say simply that they're taking black people's jobs, and there's another layer of assumptions there, right? Yeah. That goes into it. And then, yes, since they don't know any actual black people other than Juan Williams, they think like, okay, what would appeal to black people? Oh, yeah, the bling, right? And Trump has it. Don't worry, black people, come vote for us.
Yeah, no.
Gee, I wonder why you don't get the black vote.
I certainly do not speak for African Americans, but I know that they're going to see through that sort of pandering. You have to be authentic. Carry on hot sauce everywhere you go. You'll snag them. But anyway, I did want to talk about actual numbers here, because this is Geraldo's theory about how Trump needs to do both with Hispanic Americans and African Americans. And I got some bad news for Donald Trump. The research firm Latino Decisions recently found Trump's net favorability among Latinos to be negative 78%. For comparison, Ted Cruz's net favorability was negative 16%. So it's not that they just hate all Republicans. They especially hate the guy who coincidentally called them all rapists and murderers. And then for African Americans, a late March public policy polling survey found 13% black support for a generic Republican presidential nominee versus 86% for the Democrat. But Trump managed to get just 3% favorability among black voters.
It turns out that the hip hoppers are not into Trump after all.
Big fans, necessarily. And what I love, by the way, we shouldn't gloss over this. I believe Eric Bolling, when he was saying Geraldo was saying he needs to win 40% of the Hispanic vote, which would represent an amazing accomplishment on Trump's part, because he ain't going to get 40% of the vote. Bolling was saying, no. Bolling hates the idea that Trump needs to even do slightly better amongst Hispanics. He really thinks, no, we just turn out every poor white male in the country, and we got this thing. This Latino outreach is BS. And that's Eric Bolling's position there.
Yeah, I will say this, though. It was, when I dived into the different demographic numbers of the last couple of polls that came out this week, it was fascinating, because he is getting unexpectedly clobbered, Trump is, among Latinos, blacks, and all the ways that you just outlined. But yet he's still basically tied in those swing states, because he's picking up white voters in huge numbers.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's disturbing, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he's getting, Donald Trump's getting white voters at this juncture, much more so than Romney and George W. Bush did. And that not in a Republican race, in a general election, right? That's disconcerting.
Yeah, I do think, it could end up being totally accurate, but of course, those numbers depend on how they construct their sample. And they get thousands of people, and then they say, okay, we expect that there's going to be 20% Hispanic voters, 45% Republicans, and they make their sample. But they make those samples based on past elections. And so if the idea is that Hispanic voters are more likely to vote because of Trump, and women voters are more likely to vote because of Trump, then those samples are not accurate because they're based on past elections that didn't have Trump in them. That's my guess. We'll have to see as the election gets closer and closer, and they revise the models.
That was more confusing than the double stream. Sorry. No, I'm kidding, I guess. All right, you want to take our first
Yeah,
break? All right, let's take the break, and when we come back, shocking news. Now, who actually controls the Democratic and Republican parties? The clue might be the people funding them. No! Say these!
Miracle?
All right. Remember, everybody, you get the full show at tytnetwork.com/join. We'll be right back. checks out, doing a little bit of research for us. Turns out Raul Rivera is 72 on the younger side of the Fox News viewer age range. Now, to be fair,
Taking good care of himself.
yeah, to be fair, no. 72 is the median age for O'Reilly, so he's not on the younger side. He's exactly the median. And for Fox viewers, it's 68, so he's actually a little bit older. And
An older audience than regular Fox. And by the way, those numbers, I think you've been saying those numbers for like 3 years now. It might be 3 years older.
That's right. Eric Wallace says J.R. Jackson needs to jump in on stories more often. Also, whatever happened to the TYT Supreme Court? Now, Eric, that is a good question. Yeah, we haven't used it in a long time, and I would love to bring it back. Thank you for pointing that out. By the way, when I did the median age calculation of 37-year-olds and 107-year-olds and stuff, I know median age doesn't work that way. That would be average age for all of you math geeks out there.
And it's not a one-to-one thing.
Just calm down, okay? That's my overall mood. Just to comment last thing. David writes in, conservatives would block every move if he was president, referring to Biden. They already dismiss everything he says as VP. He doesn't fight it. Well, look, let's just keep it real here, guys. They would dismiss every move of Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton. All of them. The Republicans would not give an inch to any of them. And that's why Sanders stands the best chance, because he recognizes that, and his strategy is to actually fight them until they lose, as opposed to the other ones who keep beseeching the Republicans.
Yeah. And today, Hillary Clinton said that she's not going to be responding to Donald Trump's insults.
Oh, disaster. Okay,
They worked for Kerry.
And 16 of the Republicans. Oh, right. It didn't work for any of those.
No, it didn't work.
Oh, boy. Look, I'll tell you this. One quick thing here. There will be a moment in the general election campaign, if it's Hillary and Trump, where I will get a sense of whether she's going to win or lose. And it'll be fairly early on, okay?
First debate?
Yeah. Maybe way before that. And the debates are fairly late in the process.
That's true.
So the reason for that is you will know if she is campaigning in the right way, if she's acting in the right way, if she's defending in the right way, or if she's going to be, too hesitant, not aggressive enough, whatever it might be. Like with Obama, I was so worried before the campaign began in 2012 because he'd been so weak in dealing with the Republicans in his first term. Like, oh, pretty please, can we go play golf and have drinks? And please, I'll do preemptive concessions, right? I'm like, oh no, if he runs his campaign that way. But it turned out, no, he did not run his campaign that way. When it comes to Barack Obama's self-interest, he's a lion, okay? And he came out roaring, and he used Jim Messina, and he shredded Romney. Yeah. That's why I called that election fairly early, because his attitude in the election was nearly perfect, okay? So we'll know about Hillary Clinton, but we don't know yet.
Yeah. Hillary Clinton should attack and attack and attack, make Trump get as mad as he was at that one debate, and honestly, she could probably earn my support if she just refuses to stop talking about his hands. Not like directly about the hands, just keep using the word hands every time you talk to him.
You know what? You just scared me, because I know she's not going to do that. And there's a reason why she's not going to do that. There's a reason why the Republicans backed down from Trump when they had him on the ropes during that Dick debate. They had him. That's the only time. That's the only time where I wavered, and I thought, oh, maybe here comes the turn where Trump starts to lose it, right? But they let him off the hook. And the reason they let him off the hook is because their donors don't like that kind of talk. Now, they were hamstrung by their donors. Hillary will be hamstrung by her donors.
That might be the same boat.
Right, and Trump won't be, so that's an unsettling sign. On the other hand, Obama has 1 billion donors, and he shredded Romney. Okay, all right, let's move forward.
Okay, let's talk conventions. You're going to be shocked to find out that the money that's currently being raised to pay for those gigantic Democratic and Republican conventions that'll happen in just a couple of months, being raised from corporations and the extremely wealthy. Two sources that up until recently we believe had a negative influence on politicians when we gave them money. Up until Hillary started getting paid for Wall Street speeches, and now we don't care so much about it anymore, at least on the left. Now, up until about 1972, this is how things always had been done. They raised all of this money, they threw the lavish conventions, and that was that. In 1972, there was a $400,000 donation to the Republican convention fundraising effort. That was traced to a favorable antitrust legislative outcome for that company, ITT Corporation, And that led to reforms, which came in the form of public financing for those conventions. And so you might think, oh, good, we've gotten some of the money out of politics. Well, they quickly found a bunch of loopholes in that, and then they decided even with those loopholes, they're just going to kill it in 2014. They did that with the 2014 Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act that ended government funding for nominating conventions, which back in 2012 amounted to about $18 million, or 1/4 of each political party's convention costs, and is now redirecting $126 million over 10 years to pediatric disease research. I love the idea of increased funding for pediatric disease research. I'm not entirely sure why it needs to come as a result of allowing corporations to give millions of dollars to the political parties, but that's what they've come up with. For a historical perspective, the total cost of the 2012 Republican convention in Tampa Bay, Florida, cost about $74 million. That's not including all the extra parties and all that they threw. The Democratic one cost about $66 million. Democrats tried to limit corporate sponsorship that year, but that didn't lead to less spending. The convention went into debt, which Duke Energy, one of the nation's largest electric power providers, paid off by forgiving a $10 million loan, which is an amazing bit of charity from one of the largest electric power providers in the company, and had no impact on anyone after that.
Okay, so let's break this down. So, number one, they're set to spend about $150 million on the convention.
It's going to be like, sorry.
So, if corporations give you $150 million, they're not allowed to give that to you unless they expect a better return for that money. It is their fiduciary and legal responsibility to make every dollar they can. They can't give it out of the goodness of their heart. Okay? They can't give it to you because they like you, right? They put in the $150 million because they believe that they will get government goodies that far exceeds $150 million. So when you let private interests buy our politicians, and a convention is one way of doing that, that's a lot of money, man. So, well, when you let them buy our politicians, well, then the politicians are going to return the favor. And they're going to have to show that return on investment. Otherwise, they're not going to get their next convention sponsored by AT&T and all these other companies. So this is sick how it's being, conducted. And John sarcastically was talking about in the beginning, now the Democrats are like, no! Wall Street money never corrupted Hillary Clinton. All the millions upon millions of dollars, in fact, hundreds of millions that they have raised throughout their career, Hillary and Bill Clinton, never corrupted them. Money corrupting politicians, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Well, now, of course, they are taking that to another level. Yeah, we're going to take hundreds of millions for the convention. And, I mean, if you're a partisan, and so you think, I'm with her, I don't give a damn what she says, I'm with her, right? Okay, then you'll find that persuasive. But no other rational human being thinks that people give you hundreds of millions of dollars and then you don't do anything for them. Yeah. And by the way, you don't do anything for them and then they give it to you again.
And then they give it to you again.
Right.
And they give it to you and they give it to your mortal enemy. Because many of the corporations which are donating this year are donating to both conventions, and in the past, that is what they've done. They give money to both of them so that they get the favors regardless of who actually gets into office. And it's not like they're saying, we need funding, we need donations for these conventions. We'd love it if it came in the form of $27 donations from individuals. They're setting it up with people that I'm gonna tell you some of these people on the host committee on the Democratic side. That's they're doing all of the setup and organization for this. And look at who they've chosen. You decide if they're going to be looking for those $27 donations. So the host committee's finance chair is Daniel Hilferty. Hilferty is CEO of Independence Blue Cross, a health insurance giant that covers 9 million people. He also serves on the board of directors of America's Health Insurance Plan, the insurance industry lobbying group that spearheaded the campaign against the Affordable Care Act. Lobby registration documents show the BCBS Association is actively supporting a number of Republican bills to roll back provisions of the ACA. It's a weird coincidence that Hillary doesn't think that we should radically expand access to health care and go far beyond the ACA. Weird that Allison Schwartz, a former Democratic lawmaker, is a co-chair of the host committee. She was recently named head of a new advocacy group for the health insurance industry called Better Medicare Alliance. The group was set up by APCO, a lobbying firm for health insurance companies, to push to expand Medicare Advantage programs, the privately managed programs that were curtailed with the enactment of the ACA. curtailed up until the near future, perhaps, unless we change the law and suddenly they become something that we can expand again. And then finally, we have David Cohen, the special advisor to the host committee, serves as the executive vice president of Comcast, overseeing the company's lobbying and regulatory strategy. Despite hosting fundraisers for Clinton at his home last summer, he's also spent heavily to help elect a Republican Congress, including recent donations to the NRCC, Senator Toomey, Republican, Senator Scott, Republican, Senator Kelly Ayotte, a Republican, as well as over $33,000 to the NRSC, a committee for helping elect GOP members to the Senate. Special advisor. Very special from where I'm sitting.
So they wonder why young people get turned off and don't come out to vote. And then they yell at them, like Barney Frank would come out and go, "It's your fault. You should have voted more for me because I'm a better corporatist than the other side." No, you're both literally taking money from the same exact corporations and you serve those corporations. So those corporations luckily don't care about being racist. In fact, they don't want you to be racist because they want to be able to sell to every kind of race and ethnicity. That's the good news, right? The bad news is you basically work for them and their economic interests. So they will shift their tax burden onto you, which they have. I've shown that over and over again since the 1950s to now. Corporations pay far less taxes, and we, the average Americans, middle class, especially through the payroll tax, pay a lot more tax. So they screw you for trillions of dollars on that change alone, right? Plus deregulation, plus every merger approved, plus monopolies on the media, all the things they ever wanted, while the Republicans and the Democrats will give them exactly what they want on that. So, gee, I wonder why the American people are A, discouraged, right? And B, are looking for some sort of popular revolt, whether it's Trump, Sanders, just anyone who isn't a slimy politician like all of these guys. Yeah. Right? So, and you want to talk about a slimy politician? They ended the public financing of conventions. The only thing that kept them honest, by putting
to some extent,
right, by putting it in the form of pediatric cancer research. So they're like, "Oh, we are doing this for the kids." Yeah. No. You're redirecting the money so that corporations can own you even more, and you're hiding behind those kids.
Yeah.
It is grotesque.
And by the way, we read you the stat, like $126 million over 10 years, which is great. I'm sure that it'll help. They get rid of that, they fund that, so that they can raise well over 10 times as much money over the next 10 years for their conventions. There's huge sums of cash. And isn't it weird that we live in a country where, mysteriously, the only people who can organize conventions happen to work for the healthcare industry, energy companies, and places like Comcast, and back in 2012, AT&T. It's so weird that that's the only place you can get that sort of experience.
Yeah. Now, those people wouldn't have a lot of business in front of Congress, would they?
I'm sure that regardless of the money, politicians on both the Democratic and Republican side will stay net neutral on any legislation that comes up in the future.
And by the way, I remember when Obama said that we're not going to have the corporations finance the convention in 2012, and a lot of Democrats were like, "Jesus Christ, how are we going to do this?" So it turns out the way they did it was, after the conventions were over, we're like, "Oh, okay, we financed it by having a big loan." And then we had a corporation pay it off. Just kidding. Psych, we lied to you. And at the state level, they're huge get-togethers for donors. So in New York, they have these different levels of donors. $50,000 donors, and the top is $100,000 donors. And all the politicians will come and kiss your ass for that $100,000. You get fancy parties, etc. I bring that up because I like the name. They're called the Empire donors. Now I know why, because it's the Empire State, but it's perfect.
Doesn't sound good.
Okay, it is the Empire that is the establishment today. And to be fair to New York, the top level of donors in California are $250,000.
Yeah, and that's almost enough to get you in George Clooney's door for Hillary Clinton dinner.
Yeah, almost. And they get golf thrown in on top of the ass kissing. Okay, and they're not called Empire donors; they're called Grizzly donors.
I don't think you've ever actually been around a bear.
That's what Grizzly does.
They're scarier. Way scarier.
Okay, again, California, I got it. Grizzly. And it sounds a little Sarah Palin.
Yeah. In Connecticut, I guess they'd be
not good.
No.
But
Anyway.
those donors, trust me, they're going to get a nutmeg.
Come on, donors, it's time to nut up for Hillary Clinton. Ugh, don't want that. Okay, let's talk about something equally nasty. Thanks to new information from the National Enquirer, the Ed Henry affair scandal now has new details, and Fox News has chosen to weigh in as he decides to take a leave of absence. Ed Henry, of course, formerly of CNN, works for Fox News, had been covering the Clinton campaign, political correspondent, political reporter, and all of that. Now the information comes out from the Enquirer. It says, this is in addition to the previous work of In Touch magazine, which was one of the original sources. They disclosed that Henry had carried on an alleged 10-month affair with a Las Vegas hostess. In this source, called a hostess. I've heard other professions. The 44-year-old Henry has been married to NPR deputy Washington editor Shirley Hung since 2010. The indiscretions are both sexual and professional, as the hostess alleged that Henry had offered her a trip to a Trump resort, though he never came through on the offer. Did it have to be a Trump resort? And so in response, Fox News put out a statement saying, "We recently became aware of Ed's personal issues, and he's taking some time off to work things out." Roger Ailes, in particular, chairman and CEO of Fox News, saying, "This raises serious questions about Ed's lack of judgment, especially given his position as a journalist."
No, it doesn't. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's defend Ed Henry here, even though, let me be clear up front, I am no fan of Ed Henry.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't love his establishment non-watchdoggedness at CNN, and then he went over to Fox News and only got worse. So I got no love for Ed Henry, unlike some strippers in Vegas. No, that's not it. Okay, and by the way, John mentioned another profession. I don't want you to get the wrong idea that she's a hooker. From what we understand, no, that's not it.
Yeah, I heard stripper, but
We
the
heard
sources
stripper.
I've read only
Say
hostess.
host. Okay, fine. Now, this is a curious defense of Ed Henry so far. Let me get to it. It is none of our business, man.
Yeah.
I don't care what she is. That's not that doesn't pertain to his job at all. Why are we having this conversation? Look, In Touch wants to sell more magazines, and they decide they're going to out this guy as having an affair. Nothing you could do about that. I get it. I wish they wouldn't do it, because it has no news value whatsoever, except that we all live in a soap opera now, and if you're even vaguely famous, congratulations, you're part of the soap opera, and it's open season on you, right?
A little bit famous, give it your pants.
Yeah, because they're coming for it. Well, okay, anyway. But to me, the real problem is Fox News giving a damn. And
Or at least appearing to give a damn.
Yeah, because
They're conservatives, after all. They generally just say that they don't like affairs.
no. There's something else here, because remember, their main star, Bill O'Reilly, had a giant affair that was very, very public, with the rubbing the phone sex and the rubbing the loofah that turned into a falafel on him. It was, unsavory, to say the least, right? But they were like, yes, go get him, Bill! Here's an extra falafel sandwich for you, right? So, there's something afoot here as to why they're doing this to Ed Henry, but it ain't right, because it does not affect his job at all. He's not a politician. I don't even care if he's a hypocrite. They're on Fox News. They're almost all hypocrites, right? I don't care about that. That's not pertinent to what he's doing. As long as he's doing his job well, his personal life should be his own. So it's outrageous that he's off the air. Now they're considering whether they should fire him or not.
Yeah, look, here's what should have happened, probably. His wife probably should have divorced him when she found out. And that's pretty much it. I mean,
and that's between them. We don't know their relationship, right? And so, I don't know if you guys know this. Is oftentimes when you go on TV for a job like this, they make you sign a morals clause.
I know, I saw that, and I think that that's the weirdest thing.
It is.
It's so unnatural that the only exposure I have to the concept comes from the show newsroom, because they had that in there as well, because of the whole drug thing. It's so weird. Who the fuck has you to say that you can fire someone if, you've gone against my morals?
Yeah. So I believe I signed one at MSNBC, okay? At first I was like repulsed by it. I'm like, who are you to judge my morals? I'm not having this conversation. And they're like, here's our offer. I was like, hey, fast, where do I go?
I don't mean it.
Right. And part of the reason that they all sign and they don't question it is because there's a lot of money involved in it. Yeah. So keeping it real, right? But it is is twisted. So, like, for example, I run the Young Turks, right? Can you imagine if I'm like, all right, now I'm going to need to know your personal life, John. Who are you sleeping with and who else are you sleeping with? Because if I don't approve, I got a morals clause in there and I'm going to judge you and then what in the world?
Hey, I'll show you pictures.
I mean, it's one thing. I mean, it's not one thing if I ask you, but can you imagine if I'm asking all the women in the office who they're sleeping with, right? How pervy and
They
weird.
were kissed that one time. Oh. Rightfully so.
So here's the only way that it could be relevant, right? So there's an inter-office relationship that could be relevant, okay? Or you've got a TYT shirt on and you're punching people in the face and going, I am doing this on behalf of the Young Turks.
It's the only thing I'm wearing while I'm streaking.
That probably is no big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any publicity.
Yeah. If you're hurting other people and pretending to do it on behalf of the Young Turks, then okay, then there's a morality issue.
Or, I mean, as we've often said, look, it doesn't even necessarily 100% matter in this case, but there are cases in which if he's a politician who's specifically pro-family values and is attacking other people for their lifestyle, then in many cases I personally feel like it's fine to reveal that, not because it says about them what they say it says about other people, but because it shows the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And it shows that you can't trust them. There are some people on Fox who are not reporters. They're just pundits. They're just blowhards that like to judge people and attack people. Like Bill O'Reilly. Exactly. They also blowhard. If they're doing stuff behind the scenes, and again, it showcases their hypocrisy and undercuts their core argument on why they should be allowed to judge people that they don't like, then I think it's fine to reveal it. It still makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Which is why, and look, in this case, the people are spreading around the instant messages they sent to each other and the pictures and all that. We feel no need to actually show those. They're kind of hot, I guess. But that's private. Totally private.
Now, there's no news value in it whatsoever. So, again, I think John makes a very good distinction. And I've talked about Bill O'Reilly's divorce in the context of him, when he does a segment and he says, where are the fathers? And here's what's wrong with black culture, right? And then you see in the divorce proceedings that his kids were really upset with him because they thought he was an absentee father. Well, then don't go on TV and ask me the question about where are the fathers of black people, okay? Yeah. So that is an example of hypocrisy that makes sense to point out. If you're a White House correspondent like Ed Henry is, well, where's the relevance? There's no relevance at all, so get off his ass. He's already got someone. I'm kidding.
We cannot confirm specifically anything ass-related.
Jeez. I don't know. I did not mean to make a reference to ass play. But look,
we also can't help it.
Apparently so. In the end, though, Ed Henry, not guilty. Okay, agreed. I say in my head, but I did have one more thing to say. His wife is named Shirley Hunt. Okay, now I'm not, look, okay, but if somebody says, you're Shirley Hung, I'd say, you got that right. Oh, gee.
And don't call me Shirley. God.
Okay, sorry, Shirley. Sorry in 800 different ways. You didn't deserve any of it.
Obviously, bad day for her, not just having it happen, but having it be a public spectacle.
That's right.
And for that both from.
Yeah, that's
so far good.
Okay,
and also, some couples have arrangements. Yeah, that's another thing that makes it so ridiculous to reveal an affair. You have no idea if they're totally cool with that, maybe. Some couples are.
Absolutely. Look, it's the year 2016. I know plenty of couples who have open relationships, etc. And then, morals clause. Yeah. What the fuck? This is between me and my wife, right?
Yeah. Between me and her, him sometimes, and also her.
Okay. Again, this is not
okay, totally. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Why don't we jump ahead?
Yes.
Yes. We'll talk about orgies later. Okay. Donald Trump is now saying that you should ignore all of the times he promised to release his taxes. He is simply not going to do it before the general election is done. He dismissed the idea that voters had any right to see his tax returns before going to polls. He so far refused to release those documents, citing an ongoing audit. We'll get back to in a second. And besides, he said, there's nothing to learn from them. I disagree with you there. There are all sorts of things to learn from them. There are also things that we can learn from you not releasing them, and we're going to talk about that very soon, too. He said specifically, back on Sunday, just a few days ago, I'll do it as fast as the auditors finish, insisting that they'll show that I'm worth more than $10 billion by any stretch of the imagination. So he's directly contradicting himself over just 3 days, which is a longer period of time than general, so I'll give him that credit. But the thing, what I love about that quote is, by any stretch of the imagination, but now you're forcing us to rely solely on our imagination to come up with how you can possibly be worth $10 billion. If the documents show it, and we know how bad you want us to believe that it's true, you would simply release them. You choosing not to tells us all that we need to know about you and the documents.
So, using that audit trick, right? Like, oh, I'm being audited, so I can't release my tax return. So they asked the IRS back in February. They're like, no, of course you can. Of course you can. There's nothing preventing him from releasing the tax return, and that's all we're allowed to say about it.
Yeah, so, and he's been told that multiple times.
Yeah, so that's a lie. Yeah, flat out lie that if you're being audited, you can't release your tax return. It's not remotely true. Okay. Oh,
yes. Let me just briefly add on to. So Sunday he said that he was. Just a few days ago. This is not like he occasionally flip-flops. This is a marked turn from the past, because back in February of this year, he was asked at the CNN Telemundo debate by Hugh Hewitt, "Are you going back on your commitment?" And Trump said, "No, I'm not. Obviously, if I'm being audited, I'm not going to release a return, although as we've said, he can. As soon as the audit is done, I love it." Except that he is going back on that. Even as far back as January of 2012, he told Greta Van Susteren that Romney was hurt really badly by his initial refusal to release his tax returns. He advised Romney to release them now. For the past 4 years, he has been of the opinion that you have to. In fact, you will look terrible if you don't. Today, he's willing to look terrible. But it's a look to see.
Especially in this traffic. He's hiding something. Everybody knows that. Even if you're a Republican voter and you love him and or you don't, you know that he's not showing you his tax returns because he's hiding something. Yeah. If he was proud of his tax returns, like he said, I love it. Here they are. I can't wait to show them.
Show it.
Right?
Prove that you're a billionaire.
And there's some on the left now who vigorously defend Hillary Clinton not releasing the Wall Street transcripts, and part of their curious defense is, I'm sure there's nothing to see. Well, if there was nothing to see, she probably would have released them. Yeah. Right? And so this idea that people who are hiding something, just because they feel like it, even though it really hurts them politically.
Yeah.
She was asked in every debate about the Wall Street transcripts. She seemed evasive. It hurt her honest and trustworthy numbers. But there's probably nothing to see. But she won't release them anyway. Same thing goes to Donald Trump. He's not releasing them because they're far more reliable than one piece of paper he released when he first started to run.
Which was a construction of his own imagination. There's no legal authority there. There's no proof that what's in the document is true. And even in that document, he valued his personal brand, which is an ethereal concept. It's not a thing. It's not worth anything at something like $2 to $3 billion. $3 billion.
So that piece of paper he put out when he was first running is, there's proof that I'm worth $10 billion. Why? Because I filled it out. And I put $3 billion for my brand, and then they have ranges, right? I have many, many properties, ranging from $1 to $7 billion. Okay. Now it's actually broken out a little bit more, but the ranges are gigantic, right? Yeah. And you think Trump was on the low, like that he underestimated in any of those categories? I don't think so, right? So now the tax return is legal, so it actually has a full force of law. You have to make sure you don't lie in it, so when you hand it in, there's some reality. Yeah. Now you can do loopholes and you can hide your money in the Cayman Islands like Mitt Romney did, etc. But at least it gives us some sense. That's why he's never ever going to give it.
And look, there are a couple things that could theoretically be. It could be a complete lack of charitable giving, although that probably wouldn't stop him from revealing it. It could be that he pays an absurdly low tax rate, although he probably wouldn't be embarrassed by that either. The only explanation that makes any sense is that he's not worth a fraction of what he says he is. And we've been talking about this now for months. We know that he, more than anything else, is desperate to have you believe that he's rich. And I honestly believe, even if this does start to really hurt him, even if he sees evidence that his poll numbers are going down, I wonder whether he would be willing to lose the election to hide the evidence that he's not as rich as he says he is.
Yeah.
Because he could go back to being a fake rich guy,
Right.
as long as he hides it.
I have that answer. The answer is yes. So now, here's why. Okay. Now you wonder, why does he care so much about having you believe he's so rich? In fact, as we've told you on the show before, when they did a comedy roast of him, they always ask the roastie, like, is there anything that is off bounds? And most of the time they say, well, don't make fun of my family, because, that's not fair. He's like, oh, I don't care. Make fun of my family all you want. I mean, look, I want to have sex with someone, right? So that's
At least
okay.
3.
Totally inbound. He said, the only thing that's out of bounds is you are not allowed to make fun of my wealth. Okay? Now, why?
Yeah, he didn't care what the hell.
Yeah, now let me explain. Because I don't think anyone has ever clarified this for people. Because the way that Donald Trump makes most of his money is by selling his name. And his name is equated with wealth. And that's why he makes $20 to $40 million selling his name that you put on a building or a project that he does not build. Okay? So that's the only way that he makes money. Every time he runs a company, he bankrupts. So it's incredibly important to his business that Trump equal rich.
Yeah.
That's why people are buying the name Trump. If it doesn't equal rich, he doesn't make any money. And it's a vicious circle.
Yeah.
Okay? So he's got to keep up that lie. Because there's no way he has $10 billion. Otherwise, he would put a flag on it and he'd wave it, or he'd come to every rally with his tax return on a flag and wave it, right?
He'd hold it in his tiny little hands and wave it gleefully.
Forbes and all the people who've done the analysis give him every benefit of the doubt, and they put him somewhere between $2 to $3 billion. Okay, but the reality is, there's no reason why you should give a notorious serial liar any benefit of the doubt. I believe that if you actually saw his real wealth, it's under $1 billion.
Which should be enough for anybody.
I know, but he doesn't get to say he's a billionaire, and then the Trump name loses value. Okay, so from now on, everyone should refer to Donald Trump as the supposed billionaire.
Yeah.
Unless he can prove it, I'm happy to have him prove it.
Easily prove it.
Right.
And from now on, Trump it's been, as you said, it stood for wealth for decades now. From now on, for the rest of America, it should stand for the illusion of wealth, the illusion of luxury. That would be a nice legacy for Trump after this.
Yeah. So now, of course, the supposed billionaire could prove us wrong by releasing his taxes, but he won't, because he's not actually even a billionaire. Yeah. Well,
I also want this as a shirt, by the way, now, too.
I know, right? That's really pretty good. Okay. All right, when we come back, the Olympics, which I've always found to be a little bit overrated anyway, now could be a plague upon the world. Literally. We will explain. And then a Muslim at the Citadel. It almost sounds like a Game of Thrones reference, but no.
It definitely does.
In this case, it's literal. Will we defend her or be against her? That is an open question. So come back and find out. Go.
Welcome to Nerd Alert, everyone. We have an exciting show for you this week.
Glad to communicate with all the nerds out there.
What's beautiful about geeks is geeks are open to everybody. That's the thing. It's like, so you got your thing, I got my thing. It's like, and if you're not, then you're a bad geek.
Why did you choose Battlestar Galactica? Because it's awesome? No kidding. The floor is not lava. Yucky! My nightmare! And there's one very special characteristic that many men have been interested in. Penis size. What's up, friend?
Yeah, I know that curve.
And that movie is the Valentine's Day romantic classic, Deadpool. Who should we trust here? Our hearts? Our heads?
Yes.
J.J. Abrams? Isn't that right? How can you improve pizza? With math, of course.
If we spilled goldfish crackers on the floor and we didn't want to clean them up, so we thought that if we stomped on them an infinite amount of time, they would mathematically cease to exist.
We are ready for a Wonder Woman movie. Oh wait, no, let me correct myself. We were ready for a Wonder Woman movie years ago.
I love my job.
Patience. It's a virtue. They think you can put me in a box. But you can't stifle a revolution. Cenk Uygur, you started something. An idea. The truth and honesty matter above all else. And the people loved you for it. And for a while, so did I. We could have stood united. A political force of reckoning upon our foes, the hypocrites, the phonies, the unjust. You put me in this box. Cenk. No. You began without me. You began without me. God as my witness. I will be the one to finish it.
Welcome to your Friday post-game. Except it's currently midday on Thursday.
Are you gonna fire?
Sometimes I'm being a dick. Back in '05, we almost went under, but members rescued us.
Once their only method of success is going the athletic route, it tends to be the more preferred way to treat your body.
Nothing good in the world is ever happening. Strong arm that only one who's fight like son. It's totally bullshit.
Don't do drugs and don't shoot people.
TYT is all in a good mood today. I know I'm a weirdo if I read books, but fuck people. I have a stack of papers here. Believe it or not, this is how Jack used to be when he did the radio show. Wait till you see these cute things.
I'm gonna go with your try test. Size very impressive. The quads.
That's for the members, that's for the post games together. We're too strong. I believe we're back to double stream. Okay.
Double streaming.
Double streaming YouTube, Facebook at the same time.
It's like you're milking a cow.
I know, it looks like a lot of things. But whatever you do, do not cross the stream. Okay? Okay. So, in the post game today, so if you're a member, you get the full show whenever you want, download it or stream it.
Siempre. That means always.
Siempre?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Okay. But you also get the post game for the members only. And today I'm going to talk about when we were at the the fancy Washington parties for the White House Correspondents events that I went to, and how I got kicked out of a VIP section. Ooh, drums. No. You're going to love that story because it's actually political.
Oh, okay.
I got kicked out for a reason.
You were in the VIP section originally for a good reason? Like you were allowed?
No, perfectly legitimately. And then someone who doesn't like us politically kicked me out.
Well, now I'm interested.
Rob! Siempre. Did I say it right?
I thought the story was going to be that you snuck into the VIP section and then got kicked out.
I belong there. Okay, anyways. Alright, now let me read some quick tweets for you guys, then we'll have the stories. Nightcrawler writes in, we need to stop calling the money corporations give candidates donations and call them what they really are, investments.
Good point, Nightcrawler. Give that man a T-shirt, okay? Jen Rupert, you're on it, okay? Because that is such a good point. I love that. We should call that investments going forward. Okay. Prince Electro Diamond writes in, who the fuck cares if someone has an affair as long as you're not their spouse? You shouldn't give a shit. Agreed. That's about the Ed Henry story, obviously. Yeshua writes in, finding morality at Fox News is like trying to find a leprechaun riding a unicorn to an AA meeting. There's just no such thing. Now, Yeshua, that is fairly random. I've never heard that before.
There was some stereotyping in there.
Yeah. Like when a leprechaun wouldn't go to an AA meeting, not because he doesn't need one, but because he wouldn't go to one? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're trying to say, Yeshua? Okay. Anyway, I am reading the next tweet mainly because of the handle of the person who wrote it. Hindu Hillbilly writes in, Donald Trump is not releasing his tax returns because they puncture his whole fabulously wealthy success story illusion. Because he said he was a hillbilly, so. Okay. And finally, Crazy Nate says, everyone should start hitting Trump hard on his tax returns the same way he hit Obama on his long-form birth certificate. Another very good point. Not quite shirt-worthy, but almost there. But Crazy Nate, go to shoptyt.com and get your own shirt. Okay. Anyways, oh my cable. Okay, I was sorry. All right, what's up?
All right, sorry, my hair's getting on my nerves. I'm just trying to keep it in a place that won't bother me. All right. A South African judge is under fire for a private Facebook message that she sent to a social rights activist. Now, this is a South African High Court judge by the name of Mabel Jansen. And in her rant on Facebook, and again, this was a private message she sent to an individual, she starts talking about the black community in South Africa and how it is their culture to rape. Here are her words. In their culture, a woman is there to pleasure them. Gang rapes of baby, daughter, and mother is a pleasurable pastime. She also said that she still has yet to meet a black girl who was not raped at about 12. Let me give you more. Julian, the name of the person that she was messaging, do you believe that I'm even propositioned by my black colleagues who tell me that they will be in Hotel X and expect me to report there at a specific time? I am shell-shocked. In their culture, a woman is there to pleasure them, period. It is seen as absolute right, and a woman's consent is not required. So, I mean, look, she's saying incredibly hideous things, and I have some statistics to share with you guys because this entire topic really fascinated me, and I wanted to get down and figure out why someone like her would so openly say these things. Now, you're wondering, what do you mean openly? This isn't a private message. No, she made similar comments in a public forum on Facebook as well. Okay.
And even so, I mean, talking to anyone and voicing these opinions is, for a judge, is deeply problematic.
Of course.
Now, I don't know whether we should have found out about them or not. Nobody stole any of the messages. The person she was sending them to made them public. But once you find out a judge does think this way, are you really sure that she's going to judge black people in South Africa that come before a court fairly? Look, and I know that there is a high prevalence of rape in South Africa, and it's deeply disturbing, and we'll have some info on that. But anyone who says, oh yeah, it's part of black culture to rape the babies, doesn't know anything about black culture. And there is no culture where it is a regular thing to rape babies. And so if you believe that, there's something deeply disturbing about you. And remember, she's a judge, and for her to have prejudged the whole race based on her outrageous stereotypes is unconscionable. You can't have that be a judge.
Okay, so let's first talk about what you just mentioned right now, the rape of babies, because it seems so outlandish and crazy, and something like that took me aback, but then I wondered, okay, why does she think this? And so if you look into the statistics, you will find that in South Africa, not only is it a country that has the highest rate of rapes overall, but when it comes to the rape of children, it's very, very high. And part of the reason is cultural. And it's really, really difficult to, share this information with you. Obviously, it makes everyone uncomfortable. But there is this myth, which is known as the virgin cleansing myth. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Okay, so the virgin cleansing myth is the idea that if you have a sexually transmitted disease, or if you have HIV specifically, you can cleanse yourself by taking the virginity of a girl, right? And so, I mean, obviously that is a myth that's spread by misinformation, a lack of education.
Oh, right, I have heard that, yeah.
Yes, and it's specifically prevalent in Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria, okay? So, look, that's a product of a lack of education. That is not an indication that someone is inherently evil or is predisposed to being a rapist, right? There's also the issue of the apartheid and what that did to the black community in South Africa. So when rape would happen during the apartheid, do you think that police would help these women that would get raped? No, it was lawlessness. And so as a result, there was a lack of accountability, a lack of prosecutions and convictions of people who actually perpetrated this rape, and that, of course, sends a bad message.
So she says later in the messages, like, now they're even moving on to white women. Okay, that's when I was like, I'm done with this. Okay, so because to reference what Anna was talking about in apartheid, yeah, it's kind of like what Sheriff Joe did in Arizona, where he was like, oh, if you're going to be undocumented and you report a rape, I don't care. I'm not going to investigate. Now, he's under federal investigation for not protecting the people he's supposed to as the sheriff of that county, right? So now in apartheid, that was done on a mass scale and much worse. So there's lawlessness if there's crime within the black community, which then encourages crime to happen. Now, if you do that to white people, though, that's a whole different story. Then you're going to have a world of pain coming your way. That's why she says things like, now they're even doing it to white women, right?
Yeah, I know. And so she's obviously showing her bias. And the worst part about what she's saying is this indication that if you're black, you are likely to be a rapist simply because you're black. That is obviously not the case. There are so many complex factors that play a role in, the prevalence of rape in South Africa. One of those factors is how rarely rape perpetrators get prosecuted and convicted. So an estimated 14% of rape perpetrators are convicted, while 40% of women are likely to get raped in South Africa.
It's amazing numbers. So now let's get back to the culture point, because I make this point all the time that culture does matter.
Right? It does, yes.
So it's not religion, it's not race, it's culture. Because, for example, in a lot of the Muslim countries, the culture was secular until the Wahhabis of Saudi Arabia and to some degree the United States in our effort to fight the godless communists spread fundamentalism, and then they changed their culture, right? And it became more toxic. So, but when you have, like, for example, Afghans, for time immemorial, unfortunately, and here, if you're an Afghan expert, you probably know it better than I do, but for as far back as I can remember, some of the warlords have taken young boys and made them dance for them, and then they have sex with them, right?
Bazi boys?
That's right. Okay. So, now, if you say, well, that's it, that's what all Afghans do, that's not correct. Okay? Some do, and it is a real thing, and it is in their culture, and it's something that you have to fight in their culture. And I would fight aggressively to try to remove that, because those boys did not volunteer for it. They're teenagers most of the time, and they're usually kidnapped, okay, and forced into this, and raped, right? So that is, yes, it is in the culture. Yes, it is despicable. Yes, it's okay to say some parts of some cultures are despicable, right? But not all Afghans do it. Not every Afghan guy grabs a 15-year-old boy and rapes him. That's not how it works. And you can see in her statements here, right? They're all raping the babies. Now, yes, there's a sick part of the culture here, and it's insane that they believe it, but it is ignorance. That if I have sex with a virgin, I'm no longer going to have AIDS, as an example. No, you're going to give the AIDS to that young girl who was a virgin. Oh, it's devastating. Look, at our college, we had a myth that if you had sex on the button, there's this giant art piece called the button in the middle of it, that you couldn't get pregnant. Okay, no one actually believed that. I hope no one actually believed that, right?
Yeah.
But when you have ignorance and religion and mythology replacing facts, sometimes stuff like that breeds. And the answer to that is not to pick out a certain race or a religion and go, okay, I hate those guys, they rape the babies, right? No, the answer is to say, how do we fix that culture? And the answer is not easy, but obvious. You fix it with facts, reason, and logic. and education, right? That's how you fix it. You don't do it by going, they rape babies. They all do. Every single one of them does. And if they come to my court, I'm going to act like they all do.
Yes, I agree with you that education is one of the most important approaches to solving or at least addressing this issue. But you also have to make sure that law enforcement does its job and that they protect everyone regardless of what their background is. But here's another thing to take into consideration, Cenk. Rape has been so prevalent in South Africa for such a long period of time. And during the apartheid, there was so little policing for the black community that rape victims themselves actually believe that this is just normal behavior. And I'm not saying that they accept it, they've been conditioned to expect it. Okay, and there are statistics on that as well, which just completely blew me away. So let's go to graphic number 10A. In a 2002 survey by the Community of Information Empowerment and Transparency, an international group of social scientists, they found that 60% of both boys and girls surveyed thought it was not violent to force sex upon someone they knew, while around 11% of boys and 4% of girls admitted to forcing someone else to have sex with them.
Yeah. So, look, it's amazing what you can get people to believe. So there's the famous blue eye, brown eye experiment that was done here in America. With just a teacher did it with her kids. She said, okay, if you're blue-eyed, you're inferior, right? And then she switched it later, and it was proven out in both cases. You're inferior. You know what the blue-eyed kids immediately started thinking? That they were inferior. Their test scores dipped. Not just the brown-eyed kids' scores went up because they were told they were superior, but the blue-eyed kids internalized it. Now, we did that on a mass scale here in America with African Americans. You're inferior, you're 3/5 human, you're slaves, you're this, you're that, and then you have to be separated out, and all centuries of getting people to believe that that this was acceptable. And unfortunately, what happens is people internalize it. And then again, I'm going to use Muslim culture here as an example. If you ask people that wear the burqa, I bet you probably a majority, and I'm sure there's some polling on it, of the women think that it's the right thing to do because they've been brainwashed. And by the way, all culture brainwashes. It brainwashes you into good things and bad things. Don't hit other people. Use a fork and a knife, right? Well, or wear a burqa. That is the moral thing to do. But because those women internalize it, doesn't make it right, right?
Of course.
Right, so covering them up entirely, not letting them have their own personality, not giving them the freedom to go out and to socialize with other people, to drive cars in some countries, right, etc. So I disagree with some liberal propositions, and not all liberals believe it, and not even most liberals necessarily believe it. But some believe that, no, you can't mess with other people's culture, etc. Well, no, I think that there are parts of culture that are demonstrably wrong. For example, female genital mutilation. I mean, are we really having a conversation about that? I think we can change culture, and sometimes we've changed culture for the worse. I think it's a worthy project to try to change culture for the better, but not in a coercive way, not through bombing, okay, but by giving people enough facts so they can make more informed decisions.
Yeah, so they can empower themselves, so they know the difference between what they should and shouldn't expect. No one should expect to get raped and think that that's a normal way of life.
I mean, you remember the movie you watched about the nuns in Ireland?
The Magdalene sisters. Right. Incredible movie.
So back then, they thought it was perfectly normal. You know, if you did anything immoral and you were a Catholic girl in Ireland, they sent you to those abominable places where they abused you to no end, sometimes for the rest of your life. You're like, what? That's our culture. Well, then your culture sucks, and I'm going to fight against it. So, and there is a rational way to do that, and there is an irrational, discriminatory, hurtful way of doing that. I think she's on the wrong side of this.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about the Olympics. The Olympics are set to take place in Rio, and one soccer star is speaking out about how he doesn't think it should take place there, and he does not believe people should even attend it if it does. Now, Rivaldo, who is known for his football skills, just recently posted on social media, Instagram to be specific, and he posted a photo of a 17-year-old woman who was killed on Saturday in a shootout in Rio. And he says the following: Things are getting uglier here every day. I advise everyone with plans to visit Brazil for the Olympics in Rio to stay home. You'll be putting your life at risk here. This is without even speaking about the state of public hospitals and all the Brazilian political mess. Only God can change the situation in our Brazil. Well, I disagree that only God can change the situation in Brazil. But crime is incredibly high in Brazil. However, if you compare Rio specifically to some of the cities that are around us in Los Angeles, it's not necessarily, more dangerous. So I'll get into the statistics of that.
Oh, that's interesting. But overall, I'm not going. Okay, so look, I'm not interested in risking my life for no reason gratuitously. People think that it is a reason because the Olympics are there. I disagree. I find the Olympics intensely dull and am annoyed by all the coverage. But that's back when I would accidentally sometimes turn on a TV. Now that I never turn on a TV, it doesn't bother me at all because I never see anything about the Olympics. Oh, somebody threw a big, heavy ball a little further than another guy threw it. By the way, I did track in junior high, and I shot put it. So I've done your drug. But stick their line. I'm super, super uninterested. I get it that I'm in the minority, and there's a lot of people who love the Olympics, and they love to see the gymnastics, the ice skating, or whatever they do, that I find definitely dull. Okay.
Yeah, but what about the bobsledding?
Oh, the Jamaican bobsled. Okay. Anyway, so I'm not going to get no virus to watch a bunch of Olympics. So I wasn't going to go anyway, and it's super crowded, and it's expensive, and all this stuff. But when you add in all these disastrous things going on, but mainly the Zika virus, look, there's crime everywhere. Yes, Brazil's definitely a little bit more, I think, my perception is that it's a little bit more out of control than it used to be,
yes.
and some other parts of the world.
And the economy does play a role in the uptick of violence in Brazil. There's no question about that.
Right, but these health experts are right. They're like, what, you're going to now have 500,000 people from all over the world go to where there is an epidemic and then go back home with that virus. Like, you couldn't cook up a
bigger disaster, a global nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, it's like how a movie starts.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, the Olympics are going to be here. Oh, but there's a virus. Don't worry about it. We already invested too much money in these Olympics. Let's just go forward. And then everybody spreads the virus all over the world.
Yeah, look, the Zika virus is something that you should definitely be concerned about if you are pregnant or planning on getting pregnant, because it leads to microcephaly, which is an underdeveloped brain and head for the baby, right? For normal human beings, it doesn't really have that much of a health
impact. But whenever I'm going somewhere, somebody's getting pregnant today.
Maybe, I guess. I mean, your wife should be concerned about that.
Old Tracy Morgan joke. Just calm down. Okay?
But anyway, what I do want to delve into a little bit is crime in Brazil, and specifically in Rio. Now, please do not get it twisted. There is definitely crime in Rio, but if you want to put things in perspective, a study that was done by researchers in Mexico found that violent homicides specifically are more prevalent in Compton than they are in Rio.
Wow.
Yes. Now, with that said, let me give you some more stats on the number of people who have been murdered this year so far. Amnesty International said at least 11 people were killed in police shootings in Rio's impoverished favelas in April. It said at least 307 people were killed by police last year, accounting for 20% of the homicides in the city. So there seems to be an issue with police violence, which, just like the United States, tends to impact poor areas more than anything else.
Shocking. So, they have two different problems. They have the gang problem.
Yes.
And then they have the police, if you're going to be charitable, say overreaction. But it's amazing the percentage of people that the police kill in Rio.
Yes.
For 20% of all the homicides to be cops doing the killing, that's even worse than here in America.
So I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's still related to this topic. Almost 60,000 people were murdered in Brazil in 2014, most with guns. Okay, so that number is obviously disastrous. But what's happening with policy regarding guns in Brazil is super interesting, because you have lawmakers in the country that want to model their gun laws after the United States, despite the fact that we have a big problem with gun violence in this country, a big problem with mass shooting.
Seems like a genius move.
Why would you do that? Who looks at America and thinks, yeah, they nailed it?
Yeah. So we've got a huge problem with homicides, particularly done by guns. So does America. The only place worse is America. So let's change our laws to make it more like America. Per capita, we're even worse off.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because in Brazil, the majority of, gun violence is conducted by people who obtained the gun illegally. So these lawmakers are making the same argument that you hear in the United States, where they're like, well, we got to make sure that people can protect themselves, and so let's do away with some of the strict gun regulation that we have in place right now. And their gun regulation isn't even that strict. They just want to make sure that you know how to use a gun properly. So you have to do like a gun test. They want to make sure that you have, identification, just common sense things to ensure that you get a gun legally. But I don't know, if they're modeling their country after ours, they're in for a world of trouble.
At least on that issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know when people are going to stop caring about the Olympics, but you should get around to doing that already.
All right.
I've always randomly hated the Olympics.
I know, seriously. Yeah, whatever about those violence. How much does the Olympics suck? Okay.
There's a thing in an Olympic contest where they do this with a ribbon. That's not a thing. That's not a sport. That's not a thing.
Oh, the ribbon gymnast?
The ribbon gymnast.
They don't just do that with a ribbon.
Yeah, they jump around like weirdly and then do.
Okay, you've now lost all credibility.
Okay. And in the Winter Olympics, there's a thing that involves a broom. There's no sport with a broom. Okay, like the curling, right? I'm going to sweep first. No, you get. Sweeping is not part of a sport. Sorry. Okay, they just invented crazy shit sports to put into the Olympics.
Yeah, what's a sport? Throwing around an oddly shaped ball and then jumping on a bunch of burly men. That's a sport.
Damn right.
Yeah, okay. They're getting concussions.
Yeah. America. Get used to it.
All right, moving on. A Muslim family is considering a lawsuit against Citadel, which is a military academy, over the fact that their daughter will not be allowed to wear her headscarf while she's attending the school. Now, the student, who is unidentified, has decided that she will not go to the school if she's not allowed to wear the headscarf. However, administrators on campus are saying, we have a really strict uniform policy, and it applies to everyone, not just Muslim students. Uniformity is the cornerstone of this 4-year leader development model. The standardization of cadets in apparel, overall appearance, actions, and privileges is essential to the learning goals and objectives of the college.
I'm just going to pause for a second there to say that is exactly why I would never go to the Citadel and why I never joined the military. Okay, our goal is uniformity. None of you have any personality. I need you to all look and act exactly alike. Who finds that interesting?
Well, historically, that's what, militaries have been all about.
No, I know. The military needs that so they can feed you into the war machine. Okay? And when Bob dies, Bob looked just like Steve, so, okay, we're all moving on. Now, that's way oversimplistic, and there's other reasons they need to do it. Mainly, they need to break your spirit so you follow orders. And you follow orders to go take that hill even if you got an 80% chance of dying, right? So that's why they do it. That's why I don't have much of an interest in it. But, hey, here's a Muslim woman who wants to serve her country and wants to be part of the process. Okay, interesting.
Yes. So they continue to say the Citadel will continue to provide for any cadet's spiritual needs when it can, such as providing special diets or time for prayer and driving cadets to their places of worship if they don't have a car. So, the administrators are saying, look, we do what we can to accommodate the religious beliefs of these individuals, but because of our strict uniform policy, we're just not letting her wear her headscarf. And if she decides she doesn't want to be with us as a result of us having that strict rule, well, that's on her. But now her family wants to sue, or they're considering suing.
So I'm curious what your take on it.
I feel like I'm being insensitive, but I will say that she needs to get over the headscarf thing. Here's the reason why I'm saying that. If there were instances of them making exceptions for other religions, then I'd say, what the hell, that guy's wearing a yarmulke, why can't she wear a headscarf, right? But that's not what's happening. They don't have exceptions for anyone when it comes to the uniforms.
I will definitely use the yarmulke rule, because I'm split on this. So let me tell you first why I'm split on what the yarmulke rule is, right? So on the one hand, religious liberty is a cornerstone of America. Now, I'm not religious, but I think it's super important for everybody to be able to exercise their religion any way they want. On the other hand, uniform is uniform, right? And so, on the triple hand, the U.S. military that has similar rules has already gotten past this.
I know, and
right?
that's the thing that makes me a little torn on this. But, I mean, the school is, I know, a military school, but it's still separate from the military.
Right, but the military lets you serve in a hijab. There is already Muslim women serving in the U.S. military in a hijab, and they let you wear certain religious piece of clothing, okay? So if the U.S. military is fine with it, maybe the Citadel can adjust. But on the fourth hand, the Citadel is not discriminating on her because she's Muslim. They have many other Muslim cadets. Not many, but they have other Muslim cadets, and they've never had an issue. This is the first one that wanted to wear a hijab. So those are all your facts. So what's my yarmulke rule? Well, if they allow yarmulke, then they got to allow hijab.
Of course.
Right?
Agreed.
If they don't allow yarmulke, which I'm actually surprised by, then yeah, fair is fair. Then you can't allow hijab.
They're so strict with their uniform policy, I couldn't even believe this. So Citadel cadets are required to wear uniforms nearly all the time. The school has a 35-page booklet of rules and regulations addressing military courtesies and uniforms.
Another reason why I wouldn't want to go. Oh, courtesies are such a pain in the ass, let alone a 35-page book filled with them.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what you have to do to this person, and I have to address that person.
I can't stand dress codes. I can't stand anyone telling me what to do, so I feel you, right? I have no interest in this. I have no interest in the military. But with that said, when you join the military or when you go to certain schools, there are certain rules that you have to abide by. Now, I'm curious to see how this plays out if she decides to sue, right? Because I do not think that this is a case of discrimination at all. Okay, based on the facts that I know, it doesn't seem like discrimination. But she could challenge her constitutional rights to practice her religion. I don't know how that would impact the school. I don't know how that works, but I want to see how it plays out.
Yeah, so my ruling, if I'm the judge, is just based on whether they apply this actually uniformly. So if they have the same rule for Rastafarians, they make them cut their hair or whatever to make them look like everybody else. With Jewish Americans who are going and who have the yarmulke, and they make them take it off. It's uniform. It's uniform. Okay, the fair is fair. Then it should apply to her just like it applies to everybody else. On the other hand, I would urge the Citadel to get past it. If the U.S. military is fine with people wearing yarmulkes and hijabs, then Citadel should adjust to the same rules and standards because you're supposed to be training them for the military. So, good enough for the military, good enough for the Citadel, if you ask.
All right, fair enough. Let's take a break.
Okay, indeed. When we come back, a woman periscopes her own suicide. Ooh. And then there was a bold experiment in not tipping waiters and waitresses. How did that turn out? We'll explain when we return. Go. An article out in Politico quoting a dozen Democratic legislators who say, Bernie, let's wind this thing down. And they want to tell them, shh, don't criticize Hillary. Know your role. Your job is to energize all these people and then hand them over to us so that they can vote against Donald Trump and in favor of Hillary Clinton. Politico explains, Sanders has repeatedly dismissed Clinton supporters as part of the establishment, which Democratic senators interpret as showing disrespect for them. To which I say, goddamn right it is. You are the establishment. You have been for Hillary Clinton, who is clearly an establishment candidate. A lot of you have the same problems with those issues on trade, financial regulation, foreign policy. A lot of you voted for those wars. A lot of you want to let corporations do whatever they want in TPP and override our sovereignty and get rid of our environmental laws. And then, I'm sorry, do you feel disrespected? No. Here's the disrespect. The one that you show towards the voters. When you pretend to be progressive, when you need their votes, and then you get in office, you go, okay, now, corporations that donated to me, how can I help you? See, that's disrespect. The movement exists and attacks itself to Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders has a record of 40 years of honesty and fighting for those same principles. We know what Hillary Clinton's positions are. We know what Bernie Sanders' positions are. We know what your positions are. That's what drives you crazy. for you guys. Crazy Nate writes in again. Wait, you mean that electing a black president, Nelson Mandela, didn't end racism in South Africa? I thought that always worked. Crazy Nate with a real strong push for a TYT t-shirt.
I mean, when you really think about it, the apartheid ended in 1994. Mm-hmm. That was yesterday.
Yeah. Well, look, in one of these stories, I forget which one, but they was talking about, the Citadel story. How they didn't allow women until the 1990s. They didn't allow black people until the 1960s. Oh. You know, there are a ton of people that are alive now that were alive in the 1960s.
Oh, I know.
And those are the same people saying, black people in an elite military school? I don't think so. They're infuriated.
And now they're voting for Trump.
Yeah, well. But Crazy Nate, you haven't quite crossed the threshold for a t-shirt yet. You want to keep teasing. Okay. Ashley Schneider-Rove says, very good tonight, Jenk. Have no words, but just that I agree about cultural education, change with compassion and respect. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it. Mahmoud Abdul writes in, this is weird. Jenk, you were hating on the Olympics and Anna Kasparian trying to defend it. Slightly confusing.
People are mad that you were dissing curling. Is that the broom thing?
Yeah, Joseph Langschwart says, Jenk, sorry, but curling is my second favorite after hockey.
Maybe that's...
Joseph, you lost me in every part of that sentence.
Maybe is curling like hockey, but not on ice?
No, it is on ice.
It is.
And Canadian and weird.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah. It's like a Bernie Sanders victory. It's kind of weird and white. Anyway, Joseph Langschwart, we disagree. Brent Slough says, Citadel grads don't necessarily serve in the military, it's just a military school. Yeah, Brent, that's what makes it even weird. Hey,
when you really think about it.
Goes to a military school and goes, nah, I did that really pain in the ass thing for 4 years that were supposed to be my best 4 years in college. So, but now I'll change my mind. Although you might if you went there and it sucked, right? Then Saxon Ross Norgard says, uniformity in the military is not about being interesting. It's about discipline and esprit de corps. Never say that, right? Saxon, you've only further convinced me that not to go to the system. First of all, it sounds kind of French.
Yeah.
And yes, I'd like to lead an interesting life rather than a uniform one. Okay, member shout-outs. Member number 1781 is Colleen Younger. That's a fun name. And member number 1782 is Aaron Berger. Okay, Aaron and Colleen, you guys rock the world.
Yeah, our members are the bomb. Does anyone say that anymore? The bomb?
I don't think so.
Okay, well.
Other than you.
All right, so next Tuesday.
Hurlers love the bomb.
They love the bomb. Okay.
Yeah, they sweep. Whoa, man, that is a bomb. Nice job on the sweep.
Okay, is that true? Or you made that up?
No, they sweep the ice and then they push a thing. And then it goes, sweep to it goes somewhere. I don't know what happened.
Okay, all right. All right, so obviously we love our members and we want to give back to them for supporting our show as much as they do. And so as a result, we are going to do primary coverage next Tuesday. There's a primary in Kentucky. And we are only going to provide that coverage for our members. We love you guys. As you know, we give everyone a lot of free content on a daily basis. But we want to do something special for our members. Again, they help support the show. They keep us sustainable. And we want to thank them in any way that we can. So
yeah, it's a trippy day next Tuesday. It's Kentucky and Oregon. So Kentucky's fairly early on. Oregon's kind of later at night, Pacific time zone, obviously. But they're both interesting races and unclear as to who's going to win. So some drama that we're going to be. Look, it's like we do every election night. We just do very few of them just for the members. But that's, again, to give back to the people who make the show happen.
Yes, and if you are interested in being a member, no pressure, tytnetwork.com/join, and there are various levels of membership, but I would argue that the best part of being a member is that you get the post-game shows every day, where we talk about a lot of really personal stuff that gets me in trouble with my family later.
I want to disagree with Anna. There is pressure. Join now! Come on! tytnetwork.com/join. Of course there's no pressure. You do whatever you want. You're a free person in a free country. Yeah. All right, anyway, on today's postgame, by the way, I'm going to talk about how I got kicked out of a VIP section at a fancy schmancy party in D.C., and it's because of drama related to what we said on the air. Ooh.
Oh, I can't wait. All right. Because of our members, we are able to hire a staff of incredibly talented people. And as a result, we are launching a project where we allow you to meet TYT's crew. These are the people that are working hard behind the scenes to make everything that you see on screen possible. Now, one of those employees is Mary, and we did a short biopic of her that I definitely think you should check out on our YouTube page, youtube.com/theyoungturk. Here's a short portion of it.
I was born in Chelyabinsk. It's in Russia, and I was born in USSR, but Chelyabinsk is a city where a meteor fell down.
A meteor came crashing down to Earth today on the city of Chelyabinsk.
And then my parents got a job in Minsk, which is capital of Belarus, and then USSR collapsed, and they found themselves in a totally different country. So I was growing up watching movies, I wanted to become a filmmaker, and the best way, I think, to study it was in Los Angeles. So after I finished college, I was doing freelancing, and I started to send out my resumes, and one time I got an answer from TYT, and then after 3 more weeks, I didn't hear anything, so I booked tickets to Russia, and then I got an answer from TYT, like, hi, can I come tomorrow? And I have a ticket to Russia, like, literally tomorrow also. And so I was talking back and forth. I changed my tickets for 2 weeks, and I came back, and I started May 4th. Yeah, I really love TYT. Like, this is my real personal thing, because it's my first real job here in the United States, and it's so thrilling. And everything is interesting for me, really. The fact that we have free food, like, I'm not used to any of this. And also we have a huge staff of awesome people, and even none of them are jerks. Like, there's not even one asshole in the whole company of 55 people. Not even you guys. Like, I love all of you. I wanted to thank all the fans, every single fan, and especially members, because, like, all this we're shooting right now, I'm so meta. It got possible because of you.
Who doesn't love Mary?
I love Mary.
Our iguana is named after Mary. It's Marijuana.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but that's awesome.
Okay. I like the idea that Dave Kohler calling you is like your American Idol moment. Like, Dave Kohler calls you and goes, "You're coming to Hollywood." Like,
But her story of getting hired at TYT is so TYT. Like, I sent in my resume, and then I didn't hear from them for like 3 weeks, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going back to Russia, right? And then we called right after she buys that ticket, and we're like, oh, can you start tomorrow? Yeah, drop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how everybody picks everything apart on YouTube. So that the longer version is on YouTube, right? And they're like, oh, what's with the gun? But TYT doesn't like guns. It's not a real gun.
And not
really pointing it at anybody.
She came to LA for film school. That was a still from a film that she was working on. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody calm down.
How precious was her baby?
Super precious. And the whole story, the first time I saw that biopic, I got emotional, weirdly. Because it wasn't only because of her story and how inspirational she is as a person. If you ever met Mary in person, you'll know what I'm talking about. She's never in a bad mood. She's so sweet. She's so easy to work with. It's a pleasure to work with her, literally.
She doesn't even think there's any assholes here.
I know, which is incredible, because I can definitely name a few, you know what I mean? But what I also like about it is how she came about and how her position was made possible by members, right?
Yeah.
And, like, she feels like family, and that's the best part about working here, to be honest.
Yeah. And don't get carried away. Don't think there's free food every day. Okay.
There's usually some free food.
When we do election coverage, and we're all working our ass off here for 12 hours straight, then Dave Kohler will open up the purse strings a little bit. Be like, all right, here's some, come on.
Yeah.
Okay, here's some Panda Express, literally.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to do this as a series so you get to meet more people. You might even meet the invisible Edwin one day. Ooh. All right, so tytnetwork.com/join to become a member and to make all this possible. And obviously, everybody here really, really appreciates it. All right. Okay, let's move on.
A 19-year-old woman in France broadcasted her own suicide using Periscope. Now, Periscope is an app that people use to live stream, and unfortunately, she live streamed the last moments of her life. The woman, who has not been publicly identified, reportedly texted one of her close relations disclosing she was about to kill herself. Moments later, she live streamed herself discussing her depression and her pain before throwing herself in front of a train. So before she committed suicide, she was talking to the people that were watching live about what she was about to do, and unfortunately, no one took it seriously. They thought that she was just joking around. In the video I'm doing right now is not made to create the buzz, but rather to make people react, to open the minds, and that's it. And then people watching the video chimed in with remarks including, "We're waiting, always a pleasure to see you, give us a hint, and I think it's fun." That generally did not appear to take the woman's distress seriously.
So you don't see her get run over by the train, but you hear something, and then a couple minutes later, you hear somebody from the train come out and say, "Okay, I'm going to move the victim now." So it happened, right? And so, look, there's so much stuff that's fake online and goofing around and outrageous comments that I'm not surprised that there were people like, "Oh, that either didn't believe her or didn't care," right? Like, I'm going to use this opportunity. Just remember that even though you're online, the person on the other end is still a human being, right? You're not talking to a computer. And if there's a chance that she's serious, and it turns out she was, right? Don't troll her. That's not the time to troll someone. But, the internet makes people lose their minds.
It really does. Right. I remember a few weeks ago we did this story about a musical artist, I forget her name, but she was accused of cheating on her NBA player boyfriend, and then people got really outraged about it, and then they, started saying terrible things about her online, and then she allegedly attempted suicide because of the hate she was getting online, and then the reaction to her suicide attempt was really disgusting, right? Like, "Oh, she's just doing it for attention, oh, she's just a hoe," just the most hideous things you can imagine. Just calm down. Remember that it's a person on the other end of that computer screen.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what she was trying to, in her mind, draw attention to by doing this, but obviously she was depressed. That's the main reason why people commit suicide, overwhelmingly so, obviously. And so I don't know that it could have been prevented, but we don't know. But you know that if you do, I think I read this amazing stat that if they don't actually succeed the first time they try to commit suicide, 92% of those people go on to live and not ever commit suicide. So, I mean, those are pretty startling numbers. And I know there's some self-selection in there, etc., but still, if you can help someone stop that one time they're trying, it turns out, the overwhelming majority of the time, they live and they don't do it again, right? So, it's obviously a super shame that this happened. Now, the final part of this is Periscope somehow at fault here, responsible? No, look, it's a live stream. What are you going to do? Watch every single live stream, have an editor watch every single one at the same time? It's impossible, right? So, just, beware to the consumer. If it's a live stream, anything can happen. So, we're used to living in a society where everything is some way censored, right? Yeah. Oh, you can't show that on TV, not in prime time. You can't curse on the radio, but those rules are so antiquated. So welcome to the real world. So in this case, it's not Periscope's fault. If you're going to have any live stream, people can do crazy stuff on a live stream. Just be aware of that if you're watching one, and that's it.
All right, let's talk about tipping experiments. Joe's Crab Shack wanted to attempt experimenting with tipping to see if they get rid of the whole tipping model of paying their waiters and waitresses, would their customers respond favorably? Well, it turns out that out of the 18 restaurants that have experimented with this, only 4 will continue to do so. Okay, So kind of interesting. So Joe's Crab Shack customer research indicated nearly 60% of their customers disliked the no-tipping program, which launched last summer in Indianapolis and was expanded later in the fall to 18 restaurants in the Midwest. Now again, only 4 of them will continue on with this experiment, because all the other restaurants that did so got such a terrible response from their customers that they didn't want to keep messing with it. In fact, they saw a dip in their revenue as a result, which is really interesting. So here's what they did. They increased the prices to their menu items, but then they did away with tips completely, okay? So you were not allowed to tip the waiters and waitresses. And the whole point was to pay the waiters and waitresses a minimum wage. I'm not entirely sure what that wage was, so they wouldn't rely so heavily on tipping. Well, customers disliked the no tipping policy for two reasons. First, they didn't want to lose control of incentivizing service. And secondly, they didn't trust management to pay the increased price to employees.
Super interesting. So I would have thought that the experiment would have worked. So I was wrong. And I think that those two reasons I have a slightly different interpretation of them. So I'm sure that some people want to say, hey, look, man, I get to say whether she was a good waitress or not, and whether he did a good job. But I think more than that, it's people who like things the old way, right? What are you changing that for? Oh, no, you tip waiters and waitresses. That's what you do. No, I'm going to hold on. I'm going to hold on for dear life. So, but the second part is, I think, the more interesting one. They didn't trust management.
Yeah.
Right? And so that is something that has taken hold in America. That is, it's unfortunate that it's the reality, but they're right? So, but that's what never gets acknowledged in the mainstream press. That Americans have grown distrustful of all people in power. And why? Because they've had bad experiences with people in power. So, whether it's a politician or someone in the corporate media, or in a case like this, as a business person, say, no, don't worry. I have the workers' best interest in mind. And that's why I'm not letting you tip them. Our natural reaction is, yeah, bullshit. I don't believe you. You're making an extra buck, and you're hurting the waiters and waitresses, and that annoys me, and I'm not going to come back. Which, ironically, of course, hurts the waiters and waitresses. So, but the bottom line is, once that happens, and they lost 8 to 10% of their customers, that's a big number.
Right.
And interestingly, their costs as a percentage of revenue went up, so they got hit with a double whammy. They're like, oh, hell no, we're going back.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, part of the reason why that happened is because they opened up a bunch of new restaurants, so that played a factor in their, increased spending. But another thing that I wanted to bring up is, look, I don't think that the customers were wrong in distrusting management, especially when you consider the business model behind Crab Shack. So Crab Shack is part of Ignite Restaurant Group. They have a board of investors, right? And so whenever you have that situation, it is your number one incentive to look out for your profit motive. And that might include cutting the wages, or maybe not really looking out for your waiters and waitresses, giving them a wage that's not reasonable.
So you're just one of those jaded Americans.
A little bit.
Yeah. See, I think that tipping introduces a needless stress element to any situation.
Yep.
Like, put it in the bill. Okay, that's fine. I love the experiment. I wanted to work. And by the way, in 4 restaurants, for whatever reason, it did work. And in the other 14, it didn't, and that's why they changed. But I want to be just clear about this. Their labor costs as a part of their revenue went up, which means that if you take away tipping, actually the waiters and waitresses get paid better. Okay? So now that's just this one company with this one experiment. But part of the reason they're coming back, unwinding it, and maybe this goes to proving your distrust of them, is, yes, we lost customers. We actually had to pay our staff more than we expected. Oh, we don't like that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I'm against tipping, because it turns out the tipping needlessly depresses your wages, okay, and stresses out the customer.
There could also be a flaw in the study, right? Because they did increase the price of the food, and so the customers could be annoyed by that, right?
Because they're irrationally thinking, oh, the food is a higher cost. Yeah,
and
but you're not tipping, but people are irrational all the time.
I know, exactly. But, I don't know whether or not these customers knew that the price went up for the food. I just feel like if they do know the price went up, well, they'll irrationally think, oh, well, this hurts me. That's unfair.
Yeah, I hear you. So there's a bunch of reasons why it didn't work out, but I think it was a worthy and bold experiment, and I'm curious to see how those 4 other restaurants play out, and I'd encourage more people to experiment around with it. And maybe it's because I'm a weirdo who gets needlessly stressed out by how much I should tip people. Okay, but I'm always like, no, I'm willing to pay. Just don't make me judge this person now.
Yeah.
And try to figure out if, oh no, they were like unacceptably slow, I'm going to do 15%. They were wonderful, I'm going to do 20%, 25%. Don't make me make that decision of the day. Just, okay, you don't go to buy a toy and you're like, well, how much should I tip the guy in China who made this toy? Hey, no, there's a price and you pay it and you move on with your life. Random.
Yeah.
Okay, post game coming up. Let's figure out why we got kicked out of fancy place in DC. Bye.